Hi everyone, Leanne here from Aussie Quick Quilt. Today we're running through some basics of the Aussie Quick Quilt method. Everything from 1/4 inch seams, cleaning your mat, all different sorts of things. So grab your coffee and let's begin. It's a 1/4 inch seam. You must check it, whether you've done it 100 times, a 1/4 inch is a 1/4 inch. And when an Aussie Quick Quilt is being made, we say check your 1/4 inch seam. As you can see, this is just a Janome foot. Sometimes threads can get stuck in under here and that moves that. So if you're trying to do a 1/4 inch seam and you've got something stuck in there, that will move your 1/4 inch seam. If you think about that, even if it's only 1 millimeter over, it might not sound like a lot, but if you're aiming and you get distracted, you're a needle width over, a needle is 0.75 of a millimeter normally. You do that 10 times, you're a whole lot out. So once you're doing your blocks, please do, before you start any quilt, check your 1/4 inch seam. The easiest way to do that with your Aussie Quick Quilt strip cutter, what you're going to do, it can just be a scrap. Pop that down, cut yourself 2.5 inch strips. Now, you know that the Aussie Quick Quilt guide, I'm just going to do a couple of extras so that I have them. The Aussie Quick Quilt strip cutter does come with guides. You can pop those guides in. This is accurate to 1/100th of a millimeter. Now, it's not a sales pitch today. It's just the easiest way we know how to do what we're doing. So if you've got your strip cutter, use that. It'll be absolutely spot on accurate to 1/100th of a millimeter. Then what you do, take the two, line them up, and do your 1/4 inch seam on your sewing machine. Here's one I prepared earlier. Then set the seam and press them out so that that is a really good solid seam. Once you've done that, that should be exactly 4.5 inches. This is our 4.5 inch template. As a little treat today, as I'm mentioning the 4.5 inch template or the mini safety ruler, please jot down whether you have those two, because I do have a special drawer for people. I know most of you have them, but if you don't, they're really, really handy to have. Just make yourself a little note, because I'll be asking you something about that in a little bit. Take your 4.5 inch template, pop it down, and as you can see, that is absolutely spot on. You can see that that's a perfect lineup. If it's not, you need to adjust your 1/4 inch seam. Sue, you've had a bit of issue with your 1/4 inch seam. I would like, if you don't mind, just having a bit of a chat to the girls and tell them what's gone wrong with yours, because your blocks were completely out of whack. When we say a 1/4 inch seam, we mean a 1/4 inch seam, not a scant 1/4 inch seam. A scant 1/4 inch seam is supposed to be 1 needle width. When people try and do that, they end up with 1/8 of an inch. They end up with all sorts of crazy things. I engineer blocks, and yes, I do engineer the blocks to be exact. If I say a 1/4 inch seam, it needs to be a 1/4 inch seam, because as you can see, maths is maths is maths. 1/4 inch is a 1/4 inch. Once you've pressed it out properly, it should be exactly the size I've asked you to do by the end of the block. So a 10.5 inch block is engineered to be a 10.5 inch block. So Sue, would you like to say something on that?
Yes, don't be me. Don't wait until you've done a whole stack of these and fussy cut the centre on every single one of them to discover that your 1/4 inch is not what you thought. Now, I've been sewing on my machine for many years now. It's a Bernina, and have always just sat down and used my 1/4 inch foot, which is the 97 on a Bernina, and I discovered with these blocks that they did not end up the correct size. So back to basics, and I thought, smack on. I know my foot was smack on. I was right where I should be with my foot. It's a shame my foot wasn't where I thought it was. This is my foot. I don't know if you can see that.
Yep, that's fine.
What I discovered, and you'll see in the photos that Ralph puts up, is the foot is not centre over the stitch needle plate. You can see it's actually a little off centre.
Okay, so hang on. I just need to mention, so you can see that that lineup is not lined up. You can see the centre groove is not near the hole, and that was causing all sorts of problems.
What I had to do was move it over. That is 3 points to move that needle. I've moved that needle 3 points.
If you look at that, to get her 1/4 inch to be a 1/4 inch, it had to be moved over 3 points to the right.
I had to move it 3 points. Doesn't look very much, but you multiply that out exponentially, and my blocks were way off.
Absolutely. And that's why we say, please, please, please. We've had a couple of ladies with that particular block saying, no, the sizing's not right. Well, I'm not infallible, as most of you know. I do make hiccups. There's nothing that can't be fixed, though. But when I know the sizing is correct, the first thing I say is check your 1/4 inch seam. So that's my first tip. And remembering the 4.5 inch, these are all laser cut, so they are absolutely spot on precise, as is the strip cutter. So if you've cut them on here, remembering with your strip cutter, you cut, but you move your body as you're cutting. So I know a lot of you have it, and the one question they ask is, I get a little kink in it. Well, that's because you stand here and basically you're trying to cut over here. Move your body as you're cutting. So let me just quickly show you and leave it on the front shot. I'm going to pop this down, lining it up on one of the lines, and I'm just cutting 1 inch strips. But as I get to over here, you have to move your body. You keep your arm in line with where you're cutting. Does that make sense? Point 2, threads. Where do I start with threads? You might have had your grandma's threads tucked in a box. As much as you love your grandma, walk them over and pop them in the trash can, because they deteriorate. They really do. There are a couple of things that we absolutely insist on, I guess, when we're in a live class. Don't wind bobbin over bobbin over bobbin, because you're never going to get to the red one in the middle anyway. You don't need to save that 2 cents worth of thread. Thread is so economical these days. There are some very good ones on the market that are very economical. But when you've got the red thread that might be, let's say, a birch, you might have a green thread that might be a metler. They're all working at different tensions on that bobbin. They're also going to muck up everything you do with your sewing. So always make sure you pull all the rubbish off and start with a fresh bobbin. We always say 2 bobbins in the class and start with that. Now, the other thing is, when I say have the same thread in the top and bottom, I'm not talking embroidery, because obviously embroidery, you have to have a special bobbin thread for the bottom, but I'm talking sewing. Fair enough, these are 2 different colours. They are the same brand of thread. So if you're going to have, these are SSS, So Easy threads. I love them. They're 100% cotton. No, I don't sell them, but it's what I use. It's a lovely silky sort of a thread, but you can piece with it, you can embroider with it, you can do all sorts of things. It doesn't have to be the same colour, because sometimes I use a different colour on the bobbin as I do on the top, but make sure they're the same brand, so that that way they will work through your machine at the same level, I guess you'd say, because then you know that if it's a 90 weight or 120 weight or whatever it is, it's the same thread. I know it sounds pretty basic, but many people don't actually realise that that's what they should be doing. Black thread is notorious for breaking. Have you ever noticed that your black thread breaks really easily? Yeah. Do you know why? No? Okay. It's because I'm working for XYZ company. I misdyed this thread. What am I going to do with a whole batch of misdyed thread? I keep overdying it, overdying it, overdying it until it becomes black. And so now it is more colour than it is thread. It's really quite weak because it's had to go through all those processes, and it can have little knots in it. Black is notorious for breaking because it's so overdyed. So buy a good quality thread. It's not worth, you've spent so much money on your quilt kit, you spent so much time and effort putting it all together. Don't use a cheap thread. Use a good quality thread. Inox MX3. There are many different inoxes. Please don't use any other one. This is the only one I use. It's always in my toolkit. Anyone who's been in the live classes knows. What you do, if your thread's breaking, and even if it does not, grab your inox, give it a shake, and this is how much I put on it. Okay, you don't have to drown it, but doing that lubricates your thread. It also cleans your machine in all those little fibers that go through your machine. I wouldn't spray my white thread and do a white quilt straight away. Always test it on a bit of fabric. If there's a tiny little spot of the inox, it will dissipate. It's a water-based thing. It will just go away. You can't use WD-40 and all those sorts of things, only the inox. That was taught to me by a technician many, many years ago. I have had since then a technician have a fit at me and say, you can't tell people to use that because we now use such inferior parts in our machines, it can degrade the parts of the machine. Well, I've spent $350 on a quilt kit. I've worked jolly hard to get this thing going. For a $3 part in the machine, I'll get it replaced in 10 years. I'll use inox now. You'll find it's so much nicer to have your thread going through the machine, cleans it all out, gets it working beautifully. If you're having the same issues with your bobbin, you can put a dab on the bobbin and that will also clean that out. This is my favorite fun thing. I could spend all day in a jolly class and say to people, what did you learn today? And everyone will say, our sticky tape trick. I know no one ever makes a mistake in piecing. Everything's always dead accurate and no one ever needs to undo anything, correct? Why are you all laughing? Yeah, I hear you. But, and if you've got like black and white, it's really hard to get those black threads off the white there. Green, doesn't matter what color it is, you've got to get the threads out. Otherwise, when you restitch, they're going to be stuck in there. Undo your piece. And no, I don't recommend you do this unless you've practiced a whole lot, but that's how I undo mine. It's undone in about 3 seconds. But you see all the threads in here? Can you see those? The best way, I've just got a piece of normal sellotape. Can you see that? Pop that down, put a pressure over it, pull it up, and there's all your threads, all in one go. It doesn't affect your fabric, but it takes all those threads out in one go without having to, who sat there doing this for 100 years, trying to pick them all out? Yeah. Sticky tape, a quilter's best friend. We were in a class once and the lady had had it for 16 years and Ralph sat down and said, when was the last time you cleaned your machine? And she went, blink, blink, blink. She didn't know you had to clean the machine. And he took a little felt mouse hat out of the bottom because it was an absolute perfect little, anyway. Clean your machines, my loves. I clean mine before I start a quilt. I clean it halfway through a quilt and I clean it at the end of the quilt. Obviously, yours is going to be different. We have some drop-in bobbins. We have front bobbins. They all need to be cleaned. Mine undoes here. Lift it up a second time and I've got a little switch here to collect that out. As I said, I clean mine before I start a quilt. I clean it halfway through a quilt and I clean it at the end of the quilt. I don't know if you can see, but I cleaned this machine before I started last session. And can you see what I'm flicking off there now? Take yourself a brush. Look how grotty that is after one session. Now you can see this. Look at this as a lovely, lovely mess. So I'm taking a brush and you can see how much is coming out of that. There you go. That's just all, hang on, that way. All flipped out. Give it a good brush. And I keep this brush by my machine. I have 2 of the same machines and each one has its own brush. I also use air duster. Have you seen that? Even Kmart sell it now. It's air in a can basically for cleaning keyboards, but it's great. Can you see all that blowing out of there? Isn't that horrible? I also open up in here and clean here. And I blow in the top as well. So you clean it all out because that will also affect how your bobbin works. Look at all this all over the table. It's horrendous. But now, that's nice and clean. So that's how you clean it. Give your little bobbin race a clean and do assemble it. Now, if you are not used to cleaning your machine, absolutely no judgment, but if you're not, take it apart piece by piece, lay it all out. Most of us have got cell phones, mobile phones. Take photos of piece by piece so that you know how to put it back together again. And then put all the bits back in where they're supposed to go. That will save you a whole lot of heartache when you're quilting. Use the correct needle for your machine. Now, the Janome has a pink tip, a blue tip, and a purple tip. The pink tip is what I use for piecing, or in other needle terms, a 7511. Use a quilting needle. Do not use any other needle. Don't think, oh, look, all needles are the same. You don't put any liquid in your car to drive. You use either the petrol or the diesel, whatever it is that you need. You don't put oil in it. You don't put water in it, as in the petrol tank. Please use the correct needle for your machine. Universal needles are fine, but I prefer to put a 7511 quilting needle in for piecing, or a pink Janome needle. I do find the Janomes fit in most other machines and they are beautiful to sew with. But when I'm quilting, I put in a 9014. And that is a 9014 quilting needle as well, because they're designed to go through the top layer, the bottom layer, and the batting in the middle. It's obviously a bit thicker. Do you know what the markings on sewing needles are for, as in the 7511, 9014? There are embroidery needles, there are jeans needles, there are metallic needles. They all have a different eye of the needle. A metallic needle is rounded so that the metallic thread doesn't catch and break. So please, if you're using metallic threads at all, use a metallic needle. I was online the other day and someone was complaining that their metallic thread kept breaking. I went, change your needle to a metallic, it'll work. And it's got to be a 90 at least. The 90 part of it is the width of the actual needle itself. So it's 0.9 of a millimeter. The /14 is 14 hundredths of an inch or whatever, you know, in old imperial. So a 7511 is 0.75 of a millimeter. So that's the size of the hole it's punching into your fabric, which is why when you're using really soft fabrics, you use a specific needle for that as well. When you're doing stretch, when you're doing jersey, use the needle that is for what you are sewing. They spend inordinate amounts of money to design these. A ballpoint has a rounded end on it so that it will go easily through and not catch on the fibres. Each one is designed for a job. Who's ever, now come on, let's quick show of hands, who's ever just chucked a needle in and go, it'll do for right now? Please, and have you had a problem with it? Yeah. So that's why use the right thread for the job. Use the right needle for the job. Please change your needle regularly. Once again, I change mine every quilt. No, it's not drastic. They do dull. And if you're fighting with it, you're fighting the thread. That poor machine is trying to get all of that fabric through. Give it the best advantage it can. Change your needle, clean your machine, use the right thread. Cleaning your cutting mat, it's really important, especially if you've been cutting, like the last quilt we just did with all the satin brocades, the fibres get stuck. They are self-healing cutting mats. Even the green ones are self-healing cutting mats. Some heal better than others, but they're not going to heal if you don't clean them. Even my strip cutter, I like to give it a wipe because all the fibres get stuck in it and it's really easy to just give it a clean. I've been cutting, especially if you're cutting blacks or the brocades and things like that, they really do get stuck. Please use just a damp chucks. Do not use any cleaning chemicals because this is printed. You will wipe that off. You'll have a lovely purple mat with no markings on it. Just like this, in circles. If you find it's not getting all the fibres out, you can use, now this is a material one. It's not one of the green, really scratchy ones. You know, these pads, have you seen these? I have one specifically for my mat. Very gently. You don't want to take off any of the printing. And then simply get a dry cloth and clean that off. If you're living in a really, really dry area, soak your mat in water. Pop it in a bathtub. It's breathable. For some reason, they just really love the water. Treat them like a pot plant. Don't put them in the dirt. But give them a little drink of water, and it will give it a whole new lease on life. If you really have come to the end and you know it's time to move that lovely one on to the new life as a batting mat, and you need a new one, please remember we do have them, and we can help you out there. Do you want me to quickly run through what we do with our rulers? Because some of you have our safety rulers and some of you don't. Right, lovely. Let me just grab those. Now, girls, once again, this is not a sales pitch. This is just, a lot of you have these, and I have been sent messages saying, can you please tell me what each one is for? A mini safety ruler is for all the little jobs. It's got diagonals in it, cross cut. It's got marks here. So when I'm trimming, it's absolutely invaluable. You can line it up, get it all square, line up the tops, do whatever you need to do, blade in the teardrop and cut through. The reason it's a safety ruler is it's got the slot in the middle. When you've got the side here, if you're using a normal ruler, let's say, we like to think of these as normal, but when you're using everybody else, older rulers, older templates, you're pushing against the side, aren't you? So you're pushing against it and you do that. Or you do this over the other side. It's never point to point. Well, with this, 2 fingers, it blade in, straight through, safety ruler. Fingers are where they're supposed to be and things are exactly cut. So we've got the mini, we've got the normal, and then we also have the long one. This one's great for doing the outsides of your quilts, doing longer blocks. As you can see with some of our quilts, we do 15.5-inch squares. This is great for cross-cutting that. Doesn't move, all the markings are on there. Our square off ruler, I will explain that in a little bit because I'm actually going to use that to show you how to do one of our easiest blocks. We do things a little bit differently in AQQ. So you may or may not have seen this trick before, but I will show you this with a block in a moment. This is our 15.5-inch template. Our first 5 quilts. So we have our 8-hour quilt, our Aussie Mania, our Kaleidoscope, even up to Starmish. Every marking on this, you don't have to remember all the markings because when you get the quilt kit, it says use these markings on this template. This is our circle cutter. We use it extensively for most of our quilts. For doing Aussie path, aka a drunkard's path, some of the places we go, we don't want to say the word drunkard, so it's an Aussie path. Everything is changed to Aussie. But yeah, these are the things these are for. It's got an 8.5-inch square already on it. It's got all sorts of things on there. We use those all the time. And this is our 60-degree triangle ruler for doing things like hexagons. And it does everything from a 1-inch hexagon right through to a 6.5-inch hexagon with all the markings on the side. So that's super duper fast. If you haven't seen how to use all of these, the videos are on the website. I'm not going to bore you with each one, but they're the 6 that are in the current package. Now, something fun. When we do our blocks, I guess, who cuts a square, cross cuts it from corner to corner, and then puts the triangles together? A lot of people do. They cut a square, they cross cut it from corner to corner. They're now triangles. So they're stitching on the diagonal, and then they try and put those together and wonder why it doesn't work. Well, how about a bit easier way? In our app, if you've seen the app, it's a whole $1.49. It's got 4 different measurement things in it. But anyway, I'm very technical. One of them is how to make half square triangles to the size you need to make a block. So we take, this is a 6.5-inch square. I've got a 6.5-inch square on that side. Simply stitch right around the outside, as you can see. Can you see that okay? Okay, press that, and then taking your safety ruler, when you stitch, we stitch there, pull it out from the machine and start stitching. So you've got these tiny little blocks in the corner, which actually gives you a great aiming point for cutting. Now we're stitching on the warp and the weft, not the diagonal, so they are much more stable. Take those. Once you've pressed them out, you have perfect triangles without all the stretch. Now, you can oversize them slightly because everyone's stitching is different. And yes, I know you've checked your 1/4 inch seam because you listened to Leanne, but everyone's stitching is different anyway. Emily and I can't sit down at the same machine and stitch 2 halves of a quilt. They are different. It doesn't matter. It is what it is. So I've trimmed those up. Now I'm going to show you, this is our square off ruler, because you've got your doggy ears and it might not be the exact size you need. So what do? Pop this down. Now I don't know if you can you see that the slots are perfectly aligned with the side of the block? Can you see that? In the teardrop and trim. Now you turn that around. So one end is perfect. Now I've lined it up on the 4 inch here, which means I know I cut that section off to make it a perfect 4 inch square. So you can go from 1 inch all the way down to 8.5 inches. But now I know I've put the diagonal of my sewing down the center line, hand flat. And now that point to point, my points are perfect, because if you start with them perfect, it means you've got half a chance of getting the block together the way it should be. When we do some of our other kits, like the last one we did, the one you saw on the wall before, if it's got a specific template that comes with your kit, we don't sell fabric, we only sell kits. I'm just reiterating all these things because we have so many new people online today, but I'm just showing you that we've just designed these rulers so that you don't need 100 other things to do. One set does everything. So this way, pinwheel, nice and easy. So there's 3 different blocks just in that very short space of time. You can do an entire quilt just by doing that. So round the outside, cross cut, trim them off to the size you need. How do you find out what size you need? On our app, there is a section there where you can go in, tell it what size finished block you want. So if I wanted these as a 4 inch, put that in, 4 inch finish without the 1/4 inch around the outside, because this adds all that in for you. I want a 4 inch finish block, pop that in. It'll tell you to cut, I don't know, off the top of my head, I think it's 4 5/8. Well, those of you who know me know I don't do things like 4 5/8. So I round it up and then trim it off with my square off ruler, because you're stitching and something happens, you look over and it's just slightly off, because I know you're also perfectly straight every time, but sometimes things can happen. It'll be your husband's fault, the kid's fault, or the dog's fault, not yours. We know that, but it really does. You know yourself. Let's stop kidding. When you're doing blocks, they all come out different sizes, but if you can minimize the variances, check your 1/4 inch seam, square off to the right size point to point so you do have perfect diagonals. That will eliminate a whole lot of the issues. You can keep quilting without getting frustrated. And after all, that's what we're here for, to make your quilts efficiently, make them fun, make them achievable, and easy to cut. And keeping your fingers where they're supposed to be. That's it. We look forward to seeing you in our next video. Bye for now.